Hello, and welcome to this video where I want to talk to you about understanding the difference between credential-less and a credentialed scan. I want to jump right into Lansweeper Sites and show you my configuration and what the results of both will look like. So over here in my Lansweeper Sites installation here, I have disabled several things so you can actually see the results with me as I do this. So I'm going to come into scanning. I'm going to look at my scanning targets. And the targets that I have, I've got two scan servers, but I've only got one configured for this right now. When I look at my scan targets, I have disabled all of my scan targets within a specific domain. My domain I've chose is my Contoso lab. So I've disabled my different Active Directory, the user paths, as well as the IP range and the SCCM that is associated to this domain as well. So that way I don't get any false readings here. So what I'm going to do is, before we get started too, let me show you my inventory. And since this IP range is 10, let me put this in here, 10.40.0 network. Let's see what this looks like. And you can see there's no results that are here. If I was to change this to 1, because I know I've got servers in there, you'll see that I actually do have servers with that specific range of IPs. So I know the scan is working or my search is working, and I know that I have a 0 assets in here into my 0 range. So let's come over to my scanning targets, and let's look and let's enable my IP scan, and I'll show you those coming into the system. So come down here to my IP. I'm going to enable this. I'm going to tell this to scan, and it's been added to the scan queue. Let's jump over to scanning so we can see the scanning activity, where here's my scanning queue up here on top. And as those assets begin to be, the IPs begin to scan and those things begin to be discovered, brought over into the cloud activity, those assets will then be able to slowly be brought over, and we'll see these numbers be climbing. So while this is scanning, let me just pause the video real quick, and I'll be back when this gets completed. All right, I can see my scanning queue is increasing and decreasing. It's been jumping around. I can also see the assets and the messages that are being brought into Lansweeper Sites, and I can also see, even as we've been talking, that this number over here on the end of my number of assets has been changing, has been going up. So while this is completing, let's go over here into the inventory and take a look at what we can see. Again, I'm going to do a search for that specific IP range so I can actually look for those specific assets. 10.40.0. And here they are. We can see that I've got a lot of scanning errors that are going on here. And if you look at this, the error says no valid credentials found. So there's no credentials that are happening here, but it's still able to discover some really useful information here, honestly. So the server that I would like to be demoing and be looking at is this DC01 server. So we'll be looking at this guy here. But we can see, let me just checkbox that. As I scroll across the side, we can see the IP, the MAC address. It's a VM. I can see some very helpful information in here. Down beneath, we have some serial numbers and things that are down there associated as well. And what I'm going to do is go into the asset itself. And we can see that there's some very helpful information in here where it's gathering some, again, some basic information about the OS. Helps me to be able to do some reconnaissance if I need to go out and find that particular asset. So let's go over now and get my scanning credentials input into this particular scan target, and we can actually see the difference then that what ends up happening when we start scanning with actual credentials. So I'll come over to my credentials here, Credential Vault, for a full demo. And before we get started, I want to talk to you a little bit about the default credentials versus the My Credentials. So the My Credentials are those credentials that I have been working with and I have been assigning, and you can see those all listed out here. These credentials can be then assigned to specific scan targets. The default credentials are going to be those default credentials that are assigned to all assets. I like to call these kind of the fail-safe, maybe God mode, whatever you want to call those type of credentials that can really scan anything and everything. I really don't like encouraging inside of the My Credentials to be using domain admin rights sites, because that's a lot of elevated rights and permissions that you really need, that are really not necessary to have the full domain admin level permissions. But maybe you want inside of the default credentials to have the admin credentials. So that way, if none of the other local admin credentials work, it can grab that God mode credential and do that scan. So you can also, as you can see, I have a server that's called Full Demo. My scan server called Full Demo allows me to assign specific credentials to that specific environment. So maybe Full Demo is for a specific location or specific network. You can assign specific credentials to individual scan servers. So let me go over to my targets now. And I want to, inside of my scan targets, I want to assign the proper credentials. I have my credential list off on my other screen here. And come down and let's assign the proper credentials to my 10.40.0 network. So I'm going to click on this guy. We can come down, and once this loads, we can map the appropriate credentials out of my large credential list. There we go. And now I've added all of these credentials in. As you see here, I just put checkboxes in each of these. It added it off to the side. I'm going to hit save and exit. It's going to ask me if I want to begin scanning those targets right away. And for this test, I do want to do that since we're doing this demonstration. So let me hit OK. That is now scanning. If I come back now to my scanning activity, we'll begin seeing these again. You'll see this list being propagated in here. There's some more information that's being found through some IP scans. So those scans are now running against my IP range that I have assigned. Let's let this scan go ahead and complete, and then we'll jump back into this and I'll show you and demonstrate the difference. And these are beginning to scan. There's some more communications that are coming in. I can see too that my asset count shouldn't be changing a whole lot because we've already discovered a bunch of those assets and brought those in, but the quality or the details of these assets are going to definitely be changing. So let's jump over into my inventory. Let's do again another filter, and let's search out for my specific one server that we're working with so we can do some demonstration here. And you can see a lot of these little boxes here all going away that are telling me there's some scan errors. I still have some access denied and some other issues that are going on in my lab, which is sometimes intentional for demonstrating purposes. But let's go into this server that we were looking at. As you can see, it must have had a successful scan because the permissions and the error that we had here, the scan error has gone away. If I highlight this again and scroll down the page, we can see there's a lot more information that's already showing up here. And when I go into this asset, we can see a lot more of these fields now have also been completed, giving me a lot more detail into each of these different components, configurations, and whatever it might be. If there is any risks or any kind of vulnerabilities associated to that, it has already discovered what those are and is giving me this information as well. And so with that, I think that wraps up this video talking about the differences between the credential-less and the credentialed scan. I hope this has been helpful for you to see what it looks like when I enable and disable the different scan targets in this way. Well, I think that's it. Until the next video, happy sweeping.